Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for showing up here this afternoon to signing day 2019 for the Montana State University football program. I'd like to thank the Grand Tree, obviously, for hosting this event every year. Continue to be a great partner for us as this staff here excited about what they're bringing in, and as somebody that works with women's basketball and sees the recruiting road and trail. We sign between 2 and 4 people a year. I can't imagine the countless hours that these guys put in with film and travel and home visits to get these classes here for us and to make this university the best football team possible. So I tip my cap to the guys to my right here. I can't imagine bringing in 25 to 30 guys every year and the hours that takes. So with that being said, I'm going to turn things over to Bobcat head football coach Jeff Choate to break down this year's class.
All right, well, good crowd today. I guess the cold brought everybody inside, so it's awesome to see so many familiar faces. You kind of go through the rhythm of the year. We have get together here and we have cat chat every Wednesday or Thursday or whatever day it is, and then you don't see each other for a while, and so it's good to be back. I am excited about this class. I'm excited about not just this class, but we've got some new coaches on our staff that I'm really excited about too. Most of our staff is throughout the state right now. A lot of those guys are places like Plentywood, exotic locations like Havre, checking out with our quarterback club membership tonight, and so we're excited to have them around the state. But we do have some folks here that I want to recognize quickly. Just done a tremendous job of kind of tightening things up down the stretch here. I think everybody knows our offensive coordinator, Matt Miller. Matt did a great job with kind of filling into that role, and we're fired up to have him on board permanently in that position. A young man that needs no introduction to the Bobcat faithful, but Bobby Daly, our assistant head coach and linebackers coach, and he's actually accompanied by his soon-to-be better half, his fiancee Jasmine. So welcome to Bozeman. And our new wide receivers coach and pass game coordinator comes to us from Western Illinois by way of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So he's the polar vortex is not completely new to him. But he's doing a great job getting to know these guys. I can't wait to turn him loose this spring. Eric Frazier is our new wide receivers coach. And then sticking with the theme, we have another not so young man anymore, but and it's amazing how 2 years make a big difference. He runs off to Seattle, wins a couple of big-time games, learns a bunch of football, gets married, has a child, and so Kane's all grown up now. But another guy that needs no introduction, our defensive coordinator, Kane Ione. So I want to just kind of piggyback what Jason said, just really appreciate the people here at the Grand Tree for their hospitality. It's always good to come back and spend some time here. There's so many people that help us in this process. It's a phenomenally large undertaking. I think this last week, we have 63 people at our home for dinner on Friday night. In our last recruiting home visit. Our coaches, wives, my wife Janet, they just do a phenomenal job of making these, one of the things that we sell the most in this program and this identity of our family, our football family, which these young men come into, and really the family feel that we have in this community. And so I want to just say thank you to Janet and our coaches' wives for all the hard work they do. Jamie Rizzuto's not here. She's our academic coordinator. Every Friday, she gives up about an hour and a half of her time so that when these young men come on our campus, the first thing they hear us talk about is the importance of the academic product that we have at Montana State and how she's going to help facilitate their pathway to graduation. And I think that leaves a lasting impression. And so really appreciate Jamie and her time. Butch Damberger and his staff at the sub and all the facilities people, whether it's putting out food for us, making sure we've got the space that we need, getting the field plowed so they can see the Bobcat head in the middle of it and realize that we're not playing on white, we play on green. And so those things are hugely important in our success in the recruiting effort. And then our athletics director, Leon Costello, and the time that he gives up, he'll come in on Saturdays, talk about the vision for our program, some of the exciting things that we have in plan for these kids, and that makes a huge difference, I think, on their impression, on the impact that it has on their ability to make a decision. And so we have tons of people that help us in a million different ways, from the R-Bar, Mike Hope down there with the lunches every week, at Hilton Garden Inn and Montana Ale Works, the Mint, Olive Garden. I mean, it's amazing how much impact it has on this community. And quite honestly, this is not just a time-consuming activity, it is an expensive activity. Bozeman is not an inexpensive place to get in and out of. And so our ability to get out and connect with these student athletes, and this class represents, I think, seven different states and 4 different time zones. And so it wasn't just out our back window. We definitely took care of our backyard and have some great Montana student athletes in this class, but we went a lot of different places. And so it was big time in terms of what we were able to get done there. I'd be remiss, Garrett Becker, who is our Director of Video Services, and I think is the best in the business. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work a lot of places, but I think he's the best in the business. And I know I was talking to some people today, they following us on social media today and seeing, the graphics that we're putting out and some of the things that we're doing. And Garrett and Johnny do a phenomenal job. And if you wouldn't mind just giving Garrett a hand, I appreciate what you do, man. Cole Moore, who's actually in Boise today. We have a QB Club chapter in Boise, and Cole's going to spend some time down there. And Sam Holt, our assistant director of football operations, who's here. They are the heartbeat of what we're doing. I mean, if I'm in Orlando, Florida, and I need something, I call Sam, and Sam gets it taken care of. If I'm in Sacramento and I'm flying to Seattle, and then I'm trying to get in on a late night flight on Friday and Saturday morning, they're saying, Jeff, this is where you need to be. This is how you need to go about it. Here's what's going on. This is where your hotel is. This is where your rental car is. When we get back to town, everything's taken care of in a first-class way for our student athletes and their parents on the visit. And so thank you so much, Sam and Cole, for what you guys do. It's an awesome, awesome job. I'm going to dig in a little bit on this recruiting class, and then we'll take some questions from the media at the end. Okay? All right, so I talked a little bit about the kind of the scope of this class, and you can see obviously we got a handful of kids from the Northwest. That's kind of our heart and soul. I think that's that I-5 corridor. We jumped in and got a few guys from some different places that we haven't got them in the past, but this is kind of who we've been. We get a few guys from Northern California, a few guys from Southern California, primarily a Northwest recruiting outfit, and then we'll dip down into Texas and get a guy or two, dip down into Florida and get a guy or two. And so that's kind of been our blueprint in recruiting. In this particular class, this was from our first signing day. And so this, just to recap, this was the group that signed on the early period on December 19th. And there was a pretty good emphasis on the line of scrimmage in this class. We had a couple good running backs that committed. The Hosey kid, it's interesting, and people ask a lot of different questions about, like, okay, how does this impact how does the early signing period impact things? And it's still a moving target to a large degree. This is year 2. And I think there's a lot of people that really like it. The teams that really like it are the Power 5 teams, because like when you go out and recruit in January, those guys are all done. They've signed essentially. They might have 1 or 2 guys that they're trying to flip or make something happen with, but by and large, they're out relaxing. They're 2020 recruiting. They're collecting names. It's like a vacation for them. Okay, I'm hustling. I'm in 5 cities in 5 days. All I'm doing is getting off a plane, going to a house, going back to the airport, going to a different city. I'm just trying to close, and that's what we try to do at our level. Is a little bit different than the Power 5 level in that regard. And so this 2 signing period thing. The one guy in this class that I think was really impactful for and really important that we got out of the high school class was Demarius Hosey, because I don't think he would have been available had he not signed in December. I think that there would have been, FBS programs that would have come in. And down the stretch here, we recruited head-to-head against Power 5s. We recruited head-to-head against Colorado. We recruited head-to-head against Fresno State. We recruited head-to-head against Yale. We recruited head-to-head against Princeton. And we didn't win a lot of those battles. But we were in them. We were fighting down to literally last night at 10 o'clock against Fresno State. Literally last night till 10 o'clock against Yale. I mean, that's what it was coming down to. And I'm okay fighting those battles. We got to know the ones that we can win. But if Montana State's academic product is on par with those Ivy Leagues, I think that says a lot about what we're doing here. And I think that I'm going to give you my commercial again. I think that if the facilities are completed on the other side, I think our athletic product is going to be better than those places. But right now it's not, and that's the bottom line. And so we've got work to do in terms of pushing this thing to the next level. And I'm going to keep pounding the drum. I know Leanne will have some things to say about that, but we're working hard to get this done, and we're making progress. But the progress has to happen quicker. I mean, we got to have that shovel in the dirt by the early this summer so that we can bring kids on campus for our camps and say, you can be a part of this. This is going to be done when you're going to be here. And I think that's the only thing that's holding this place back from being exceptional right now, is that one big piece of us having a shiny new car to show these kids when they come here. Because like I tell them all the time, if they're coming here and they want to buy if you go to a lot and you want to buy a new car and there's no new cars on the lot, you're going to go to the lot where there's a new car. That's just the nature of it. And so we're trying hard to get this done, but I think that's one thing that kind of in this early period that did show up. We did have the 2 transfers in Blake Flovin and MONROE Williams. Blake, a junior college kid who was originally at Holy Cross back east, and then and is from the Bay Area originally. Was at Foothill College where Josh Tafalele had coached previously, and Blake's doing a nice job fitting in. And a MONROE young man from Western Washington that I'd had a relationship with in the recruiting process when I was at the University of Washington. And so excited about those guys. We kind of already did the unveiling of that part of the class, but good Montana flavor in this group. Excited about these guys. I mean, Jaden Smith is all of 6'6". He's a big dude. Brian Lonergan, I mean, he's just embarrassing people, dunking on people left and right, and AA basketball here in Montana, and so we're excited about those guys. I think the other kid, we didn't end up taking a high school quarterback. And here, I will say this. Okay, I think Blake Thielen's pretty good. I do. I think we got a really pretty good bargain right there, and that guy's a preferred walk-on. And if you watch him play basketball, another guy that's kind of consistently dominant at the AA level in this state, and then you go back and you watch the high school film of him playing quarterback, and you look at a program that really wasn't relevant for the last several years in Great Falls High, and this guy kind of put them on their back and made them relevant again. Had an opportunity to engage with he and his dad this last weekend, and I just think he might be a guy to just put a little asterisk by in your program and say, keep an eye on that kid. Really highly competitive young man. This is kind of the breakdown of our class. You can see the offensive line took a lot of guys there. Okay, and I think that's got to be continuously what we do, because those big bodies are so developmental. You never know how their bodies are going to change, how their demeanor is going to change. Are they going to stay healthy? All of those things are so impactful, and so I think you have to oversign at O-line and DB. Those are the 2 positions in my mind that you've really got to oversign in. I can't make them bigger necessarily. I mean, God's only going to let them get so big, even with the weight room and all the things that we do. So if they come in and they've got a large frame, that helps us, okay? And then their coverage ability and those things, a lot of times the defensive backfield are hard guys to evaluate because they're hard guys to see on film. And so to be able to have a few extra bodies back there, that's helpful for us. We talked about Blake being the 1 quarterback in this class. We've got 3 wide receivers. We'll talk about a couple of those guys here. We obviously had Jaden Smith in the first class. We got the 2 running backs. I talked about Demarius, and then Joe Olson, who again, I think he's a guy. I think what do you have, 800 yards in 6 games. Okay, the guy can play the game. Okay, and I've talked about him a little bit. He was kind of the head coach's signee, because I just love the way the kid plays. Love his demeanor. They were at our camps consistently. That's one of the themes that you're going to hear. These Montana kids, especially that come to our team camp, where we can evaluate them over a 3 or 4 day period of time, it makes a huge difference. And a lot of our guys that we end up taking come from those evaluations. Tight end position, I think we got a lot better there with Ethan Bullock from Big Timber, as well as Ryan Lonergan, who I spoke about a moment ago. Okay, so I think we met some immediate needs on that side. Defensively, we graduate the 3 seniors. I think you'll see us take another D lineman. There's really 3 recruiting cycles for us, right? There's the early signing period, there's the late signing period, which we're celebrating today, and then you roll into kind of the bounce down junior college, the portal, okay, which is, I'm just going to say it right now, is the worst thing that's ever been invented in the history of athletics. Let's just make this easy for kids to quit. Let's just make it easy for guys to think that the grass is greener on the other side. We've created a real problem in NCAA athletics, and I think they'll take a look at it. I think Leon was telling me it's like there's 5,500 and something names on this thing, and it grows every day, and about 25% are Division I football. Okay, so you're going to end up with a situation where you're going to have basically 50% of the kids. If it continues like this, next year, 50% of the kids of the roster will be trading places every year. Does anybody think that's a good idea? I don't think that's a good idea. And so hopefully we can get a handle on that a little bit and create a more reasonable transfer rule. But that's what's going on a little bit right now. So the D-line, so I think you're going to see that late signing period. We'll probably take another defensive lineman. Defensive back, talked about that being a huge kind of a target for us in this late signing period. We were able to make that a priority, and I feel like get some tremendous value and impact in that area. Took a bunch of linebackers, not because we lost a bunch of linebackers, but because a lot of times the linebackers, that's kind of that universal body type. And those kids are kids that can do add a lot of value to your roster. And then we got a handful of guys, we'll see where they end up playing. Position versatility is one of my big deals, and so guys that can play a variety of positions give us a chance. Bryce looks really vicious right there. That's a great picture, Garrett, with the arm brace and eye black. So, okay, so we'll start talking a little bit. I'm not going to show any video today. I just think it'll bog things down. Plus, you guys can't see the video, and Greg, you don't know what you're looking at anyway, so it's okay. All right, so I appreciate Greg letting me have a little fun with him now and then. So Hudson Clunt, so a young man out of Twin Falls High School in Twin Falls, Idaho. Probably the most interesting part of this recruiting story is Hudson is a young man who and this is telling you something, I coached his dad. And so his dad was a senior the one year that I was at Twin Falls High School, and Travis played tight end and linebacker, and I was his position coach and defensive coordinator, and kind of an interesting deal. And he ended up, their team came to our camp because the high school coach there now was the offensive coordinator on the staff at the time. They came to team camp. You watch him bend. He is a big, good-looking kid. I mean, he is, built the right way for an offensive lineman, flat-bellied, big booty. I mean, he's ready to go. And so, just excited about him. Really smart kid, good multiple sport athlete, a guy I think that can add value to us in a number of areas. I think he's probably a natural inside player, played tackle in high school. And so he's going to be a guy that I think is going to have an impact for us immediately. Excited about him. Great kid, wants to be a Bobcat. It's awesome. Okay? Jacob Kettles. Okay, so you'll notice on the release it talks about a gray shirt. And so what Jacob's going to do is he'll delay his enrollment until January of 2020. He's coming off an ACL. Had he not been coming off an ACL, that would have been a no-brainer for us to bring him in right away. And we would have probably been a lot more heavy recruiting battles. It came down to basically the same type of deal between us and Eastern Washington. Linden High School, which is Bryce Sturck's high school, a traditional power in kind of the northwest corner up by the Canadian border of Washington. Very well coached. Consistently, I think they played for the state title again this year. I think there's been numerous times that Linden High has played for the state title at their division in Washington. And so kind of a smaller town kid, mom and dad, great family. They came out on the visit. I think they just felt immediately like this was going to be a great fit for him. And he's a very, very athletic kid. He'd be playing basketball right now if he wasn't rehabbing from his injury. And again, kid that I'm very excited about. All of 6'4 plus. I mean, this guy can go. He's going to be a really good player for us. Justice Perkins, okay, the honey badger. All right, this guy, if you watch this kid's film, and I encourage you to do it, he puts more guys on their back than anybody. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that's going to kind of come in, and I kind of compare him to Sean Sampson, a guy that's an undersized guy but can play multiple positions. Sean Sampson was a guy that everybody look at him and say there's no way he's going to get the job done, and every single time he got the job done. Whether it was by moving his feet correctly, cutting the guy down, whatever it took. And so I thought the emotional leader of the Bozeman High team was this guy, a guy that has great energy, great in the locker room. My son played with him when he was an underclassman, and he had nothing but great things to say about him. He's a legacy. His father played here. He's going to be a lot of fun to have in the program, and I think he's a guy that could play on either side of the line of scrimmage. And so really excited about Justice and what he brings to the program. TJ Session. Okay, so TJ, guy from Vista Murrieta High School. Coach Armstrong, who actually just walked in a little bit ago, but Coach Armstrong kind of identified this guy a little bit later in the recruiting process, and I'm glad he did. Really, really excited about this young man. He's a kid who comes from a military family. His mom was an MP, and his dad was a drill sergeant. Okay, so I think we're probably not going to have any problems with TJ. And seriously, it was a pretty impressive family, and just the guys. I mean, he's kind of that guy that you want to kind of go squeeze his cheeks. He's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and grow into his body. Very dominant offensive lineman. Really was kind of the key cog for them and on their front for a very good high school football team. And so I'm extremely excited about TJ's future here, and love what he brings to our program. On the defensive line. Okay, so Tua, and this is not actually it is a misprint because he weighed 385, not 380 when he came on his visit. Because I asked him, I said, what are you going to weigh, Tua? He said, I don't know, 340-ish, and that broke our scale. So Big boy, Tua is. And he hasn't played a lot of high-level football. And that's the thing that really kind of attracted me. Now, this kid, excellent student. 3.8 core, very, very smart young man. Like a lot of Polynesian kids, kind of quiet, unassuming, and then they walk in and they kind of go, oh, you're like, okay, that guy's a large human. And so he's a guy that kind of excited. There's a lot of things that excite me about this kid because I think he's a very coachable young man who, again, hasn't played at a very, very high level for very long. And I think he's going to, and the combination of his physical ability and his intelligence, I think, are going to allow him to develop quickly in our program. And so I think it's going to be a win-win. He's going to eat up 2 gaps. I promise you that. And he's going to be an inside linebacker's best friend, right, Coach Daly? And so excited about Tua. At the linebacker position, Jahari Martin. So I've talked about this a couple of times, but Coach Armstrong was a very highly regarded high school football coach at 2 excellent programs down in Polk County, kind of just east of the Tampa, Florida area. One was Lake Gibson High School, and the other was Kathleen. And during his time down there, obviously, he was able to have some connections to a variety of people. And one of the things that came through that connection was this young man, Jahari Martin. And so Jahari was a guy that actually started his high school career at Lake Gibson High School and then transferred to Lakeland High School, which is in the same basic community there in Lakeland, Florida. And Jahari kind of, set Twitter on fire when he had the shirt off in the home visit picture with Coach McGee, which I don't know how many guys have done that, but that's kind of impressive. And so he came on his visit, really likable young man. Actually, what you think he's kind of one of those guys that you think you're going to get something and you think you're going to kind of get this brash, kind of tough guy image, very quiet, very humble young man, very smart young man. So kind of don't judge a book by its cover type of kid. And he's was a team captain, was on a team that beat Lakeland, beat St. Thomas Aquinas, which is usually one of the top 5 teams in the country for the large school Florida State Championship. He was the team MVP, and he was the Polk County Defensive Player of the Year. Had 130 tackles. I could give you some other stats, but the other one that stood out was that he's had 4 blocked punts. And so was a dominant player. He played as a defensive lineman in his first couple years in high school and wanted to play linebacker, moved to Lakeland. They put him at linebacker, and he flourished. And so excited about his future here, and he'll be a really fun kid to have in the program. At defensive back, a lot of guys at this position in our class. So Elijah King, this kid's an interesting kid. It's funny when you start to get to know these young men and you get to know their families. This kid has a lot of depth to him. Wanted an engineering piece, but really what he wants to do is he wants to design and sell custom sneakers. And he does the artwork on them, and he'll airbrush them. He's got these pictures of all this, and it's phenomenally good. He's an exceptional artist, but he's brilliant. He knows, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to get this engineering background so I know how to do the manufacturing piece, and then I might want to get a minor in marketing so I can understand the business. And oh, by the way, I want to see if I can do some graphic design stuff. He's got a really good plan for his life, and so I was really impressed by that. Excellent family, comes from Elk Grove, California, just south of Sacramento, Cosumnes Oaks High School. I think he's a guy that has a ton of versatility. We're signing him basically as a DB, but I think he could play slot receiver. He could return punts. He just could do a lot of things for us. And so very excited about his, both on and off the field, his future here at Montana State. Eric Zambrano. So Eric's a young man from, it says Summit High School, but he's actually from Upland. That's where he graduated from, probably one of the better programs in the Inland Empire, which is just east of Los Angeles. He, long, rangy corner. This is a guy that, as we were starting to engage with him in the recruiting process, there were a lot of Mountain West schools and even Pac-12 schools that were starting to kind of show interest in this kid. I don't know, Coach Armstrong did an awesome job with him. I really do. And we kind of had an in. One of my former players at Boise State is his position coach at Upland High School. And that sometimes means something, sometimes doesn't. I guess I was nice enough to this kid that he wanted to help us out. And it's, kind of comes down to relationships again. And so we're excited about him. I think long corners are hard to find. He's a guy that could start at corner and grow into a safety, about 6'3", 190 pounds, and very athletic. Taylor, and that is correct, it's O-R, Tyler, I'm sorry, with an O-R, Bohannon from Grant High School, probably one of the more decorated high schools in South Sacramento. There's been some unbelievably great players that have come out of this place, both basketball players and football players. And Tyler's tough kid, man. I mean, he's overcome some adversity in his personal life, kept his eyes on the prize, has done a great job of focusing on what he needs to do to put himself in a better situation. A guy that really Elijah King and Tyler, we kind of got turned on to by another former Boise State student athlete that lives in Sacramento. And this guy's scrappy, man. This kid's he's gonna be tough. I mean, he's gonna be in your face, let's play man to man, let's see what you got type of corner. And so very, very excited about him. I think he'll be a guy that is going to try to come in and compete for something right away and get after people. And I think he's going to bring an edge to our defense, and I'm excited about that. Dom Brown. So watch this kid's film. I probably don't need to say a lot. I mean, I think this guy is special as a defensive back. I mean, you don't see guys that are this long. Not only is he a good man-to-man player, but he's also understands zone very well. I think he's a kid from Oxnard that just has got a huge upside. Quiet, humble, great mom and dad. Dad actually played college basketball at Oregon State University. Just a good, solid kid who's got a huge upside. Excellent high school basketball player. Oxnard High is one of the better basketball programs in their area right now in that part of the state of California. Awesome kid. Just excited about his future and can't wait to get him up here and start working with him. Wide receiver. All right, we got Jamad Monroe, Peanut, okay, from Lincoln High School in San Diego. So great job by Eric digging in on this guy. He was originally identified in the spring. We'd actually offered him early by Coach McGee down in San Diego. Eric went down on his 20 or 48-hour trip down to San Diego and dug in on this kid, and we felt like he was a guy that we couldn't pass up. I think he's got excellent film. He's in that 6'1.5", 6'2" range, about 185, 190 pounds, strong, better physically developed than a lot of high school wide receivers you see, has good top end speed, can probably slide into the slot and give us a different type of athlete than Willie. I think Willie brings some great short area quickness things, and this kid can maybe stretch the field a little bit more vertically for us, and so excited about him. One of the things that was kind of funny in the recruiting process, I was like, well, do you like to compete? Yeah, what do you like to compete at? And he was talking about different things, and he was like, and I love competing with my sister on grades. And I thought that was an interesting deal that, he was going to compete with his sister who's already in college. And so excited about that, and I think, you could kind of see Smile at kind of that infectious personality. So looking forward to having him here. These athlete guys, so a lot of these guys are kind of guys that we think could play on either side of the line of scrimmage. It just kind of depends. So Brock Spiegelberg, who's from Kelly Walsh High School in Casper, Wyoming. So this kid came to our camps. He was actually a guy that we were close to doing something with scholarship-wise early on. One of the more productive runners in the state of Wyoming. He was a two-time top 25 player in the state of Wyoming, both as a junior and a senior, and played excellent at both linebacker and running back, and so he's a guy that could play on either side of the line of scrimmage, and really good student, wanted the engineering opportunity, and so I think we're going to really benefit. The last guy that we had from Wyoming that we were super excited about and he was a walk-on kid, and now he's on scholarship, was Coy Steele, and Coy's just simply one of the hardest working guys in our program, and so hopefully Brock can come in and carry the flag for the Wyoming boys again. Logan Gilliard from Big Fork, so joining his teammate, and these two guys are kind of bookends. They were both at our camp, and they actually look fairly similar body type-wise. I think they're on an undefeated high school basketball team, a team that won the state championship a year ago. So Ethan and Logan are kind of those two guys. They're both in that 6'3" range, very similar body types, and I think he's a guy. The reason I put him at athlete is, number one, he's an excellent long snapper, which you cannot devalue that. I mean, that's a kind of an added bonus. And he could play either D-line or possibly tight end. And so we'll kind of see where it all comes together for Logan, but very excited about him becoming a Bobcat. We got two kids out of Big Fork, and excited about they're both those kind of that long, rangy Montana tough kid that you get excited about because you never know exactly how they're going to develop. Rylan Ort. So, I have some friends around the state that, you got guys you've known for a long time and you kind of trust. And ironically, some of those guys are high school football players in the state of Montana for me because of my background going to Western, a lot of guys going into education. And so when I get to the point where I'm like, are we missing anybody? And usually BJ doesn't miss anybody in Montana. And this was the name that kept kind of coming up. Hey, have you looked into this Ort kid from, he's pretty good, and so he played for Dane Oliver up there in enemy territory, and Yeah, he is pretty good. I mean, I think he's a guy that he could probably most likely fit on the defensive side of the ball as a safety, but just feel like he's a tough kid, again, a tough Montana kid that adds value to your roster. And so excited about his presence here in our program in the near future. Jack Galt from over at White Sulphur Springs, another kid. This guy kind of played everything. Six-man football, plays a little bit of everything. Primarily was used as like a defensive end and I guess a tight end fullback in their offense. And again, just a tough Montana kid, man, just from over the hill. And he'll bring his lunch and go to work every day and give you everything he's got. Might fit into a fullback role for us, similar to what R.J. Fitzgerald from Dillon has been for us. And so another guy that you can't. I had this long conversation with our staff the other day about how important it is. I know we're spending all this time down in California, and I'm going to Texas, and maybe it was just me personally. I'd been so many dadgum places. I was like, we can't forget about these Montana kids. And the one thing I will say, and I really commend BJ for this, is he is always pounding the table for those Montana kids. And so you never know who the next guy's going to be that gets that opportunity and takes advantage of it and becomes the next great Bobcat, because they have so much pride in being a part of this great university in their home state. Okay, so spring football is just around the corner. Not if you look outside, but I said it was going to be ambitious. We're going to start on March, I think it's actually March 2nd, but anyway, the first Saturday in March will be our first spring practice. It might be a meeting and a walkthrough, which is okay. We get 15 of them, and some of them we might get, have to deal with weather, and then we'll roll with it. But the reason that I like to do this in this fashion is because if we don't get it done early, if we push spring ball back behind spring break, then you kind of run up against finals. And I think the springtime for our student athletes, they need to be able to go train right now and focus on school, compress spring ball, which we do by putting 2 weeks before spring break and 2 weeks after spring break, get our spring game out of the way, and then they basically have a month before they get to finals. And that gives them an opportunity to kind of get back in the classroom, dig in a little bit on maybe some training things that they want to dig in on, and just go to work. And so that is kind of that's the crew right there. And I'm sure that there will be some questions, so I'll be happy to take any questions at this time. Start with the media, and then we'll turn it loose.
I know that you thought initially that maybe there were only going to be 8 or so guys in this second signing period, so what allowed it to kind of swell up?
Yeah, well, here's the thing so he's asking, originally we probably didn't have space for a lot more, maybe 8 or so in this class, and why it got larger, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the pure fact is we know we're going to have attrition on our roster. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the FCS level, there's 3 equations that you work with. You work with 63 scholarships, 85 counters, meaning that 85 of those 85 members of your roster can be on some form of scholarship, and then 104, which is our roster limit here at Montana State. And so when you go into the fall and you're not right at 63, you're at like 61 or 59, and then your counters are at like 78 or 82, and then your roster's at 10. Invariably, that's where we've been. And so how do you fix that? Well, you don't have a crystal ball and know who's going to come in and say, you know what, I'm homesick, I'm taking off, or my mom's going through cancer, or school didn't go right, or whatever the case may be. I mean, there's a million different things that happen, right? And so what I know is, I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but I know we're going to need these spots. And so one of the ways that we can hedge our bets of having more of a full roster is by kind of, hedging our bets right now and taking a few more guys.
For a lot of these guys have mentioned, that, come from good families, their grades, what have you. Do you feel like, how much do those intangibles, factor in here?
Yeah, well, I think okay, if you're a student athlete, he's asking what are some of the intangibles that we're looking for. We call it the right cat, TRC. Okay, so those are the qualities that you can't measure that we think are going to allow a kid to be successful here. And quite honestly, there's going to be times where you roll the dice. I mean, you may not have enough time to dig in on it, and you're like, I think the kid's a good enough player that we're going to take a risk and see if this works out. And especially on a roster of our size, that's going to happen from time to time. But the things that we're looking for, you're looking for a strong family. I mean, we feel awesome that most of the kids that come up on our trips bring mom and dad, or at least one of the 2 parents. And that's an important thing, because we want them we're recruiting the parents too. If they know their son is going to be in a place where he's safe, productive, happy environment that they can love, that's great. But here's the other thing. When they get back up here, because autumn is awesome here, right? They get here, we're here in the month of August. Kids come on campus in September. There's great energy. We're looking forward to games on Saturday. They go home for Christmas. They come back. And guess what happens in January and February in Bozeman, Montana? It's cold. It's dark. You know, there's not a lot going on. Okay? And so this is the time where you've got to look the parent right in the eye in the recruiting process and say, okay, when Johnny calls you up and says, Mom, it's cold, it's dark, there's nothing to do, I'm homesick, you know, what are you going to do? And so I have those conversations with the parents. And, you know, most of the time they tell you the right answer, but it doesn't always play out that way. And so I think that, you know, you have to know where this kid's coming from. Is he coming from a place where he's going to have the personal discipline to stick through when things get a little bit challenging? Okay? And I don't care if we're talking about college football players or we're talking about Joe Student from wherever. Everybody has those emotions. You know, you probably even felt that way when you were at North Dakota State, you know, which is colder than here half the time. So, I mean, I think that's just natural human emotions that kids feel, and so you got to have the support of your family to be able to do that. And so some of those intangibles that we're looking for, just that ability to kind of fight through adversity. Have they worked through an injury? Has there been something in their personal life that they've had to overcome? To, you know, in a conversation, it might be, tell me about an adversity that you've had to overcome, so that you can kind of identify how you think they're going to deal with it. Because when they get here, this is the best part of it, right? We're loving them, we want them here, everything's great. But you know what happens? They may get an injury. They may not be the superstar that they were in high school. They're going to have some of those things. And so I think digging in with the family and identifying whether that young man has been through some things that, you know, he's going to have to, you can identify how he might deal with some challenges is important.
What do you dislike specifically about the transfer portal, and what might you prefer?
You asked about the transfer portal. Here's what I think. I just think we should not make it easy to quit. Because guess what happens to quitters once they've done it once? Anybody? They do it again. Because it becomes easier after you've done it the first time. And so I don't think we should make it easy for kids to quit. I just think it's an absolutely deplorable message to send the youth of America. Okay? We're giving these kids an opportunity. By and large, a lot of them are on scholarships. Okay? They're not positioned to make a decision that's going to affect the rest of their life in a negative fashion because they don't like that it's cold outside for a couple months. You know, I mean, let's just be straight about it. And so I just think that we've got to do something to make it a little more challenging, to challenge kids to look at, hey, push through the adversity. There's so much value in that, right? Where's the value in quitting? Like, is that something you're going to put on your resume? You know, I don't think so. I don't think it's anything that anybody's ever going to be proud of. And so I think that what they may be proud of is that, you know what, I had some difficult times, I worked through it, I finished. And so that's what I'm trying to promote as somebody that deals with young men every day and is trying to build young men for our future and hopefully leaders of our future. Is those are the qualities that I admire and respect and want to see. And I think most of us probably feel the same way. So to answer your question in short term, they're making it too easy. Well, I think it could make people really lazy in recruiting. He's asking how it might affect Montana State, because we don't have to necessarily spend any money this spring, right? All we have to do is get on the internet, open up the portal and go, anybody know this guy? Anybody know this guy? You know, so, I mean, you could see it could create a lot of, you know, kind of sloppy recruiting, if you will. But again, they're on the portal for a reason. Let's remember that. And if we have a relationship with a kid, and that's not to say that every situation's the same. I mean, there's always going to be different. Like when a kid goes to a place and he's there for 2 or 3 years, and he's like, I gave the program everything I had. I want to play. You know, I just want to have an opportunity to get on the field because I only get to do college for this much, right? So a kid goes from a Power 5 program to an FCS program because you know the kid, you know what kind of character he has. You've got, you know, good information from the coaching staff where he's been, and they make a decision to go, I just want to play, a la Bryce Sturck. By all accounts, great kid, no problems, never had an issue with him. He just was behind the 8 ball, behind a couple 5-star recruits at the University of Washington who's winning Pac-12 championships, and he's like, I just want to play. So he comes here and leads the Big Sky in sacks. I think that's one that makes sense, right? But you know, I've been here 1 semester and I'm going to hang it up because I don't like it right now. That is not what we're trying. And I don't really think that's the intent of the portal, but that's what's happening.
And the way it works is a guy can put his name in there without telling anybody.
Technically, yeah, they can announce, or they can. We get an email. it's an online deal. Like they can sit in their dorm room and go to our compliance deal and kick it over, and then we get an email that says FYI. Yeah.
Yeah, do you feel like, or has there been anything like that that has specifically affected this recruiting class? You know, has anybody maybe left the program?
No, not really. I mean, here's the thing, and I'm just going to stop you right there because I'm not going to talk about guys that aren't on my roster, okay? I don't think they deserve that much respect, quite honestly. And so I'm going to stick to the guys that are here. And so if you guys, we'll have another press conference, and we'll let the guys that are new staff, and I'll address any roster changes. But, you know, I just think we disrespect these kids if we take away from their day. And so I'm happy to take questions about our 2019 recruiting class, and this is their day. They get this once, and so we can talk about that stuff at another time.
Speaking of your other coaches, how do you feel like they, have brought in the recruits? How do you feel like they did recruits?
Well, I mean, everybody kind of, really, I tell you who did a great job was our existing staff. Everybody picking up the slack a little bit, because we were a little bit shorthanded. And so, I really got to commend all of our existing staff in that regard. And then, Kane got out and dug in with Kyle on these DBs and got to know them, and that was going to be important because he's going to be in the back end. And, Bobby, the great thing about Bobby is we actually have areas for him to go right into where he's got connectivity. I mean, he knew stuff about guys that we were recruiting that we didn't know. And I was like, okay, and really made me feel pretty good about Bobby because I knew he was going to be detailed in that regard. And so excited about, what he brings to the table. He's going to be able to dig in LA, Ventura. He's going to go take over the Boise area, which he had when he was at the University of Idaho. And so I think there's going to be a lot of connectivity for us. And let me say with Kane and with Bobby, there is, and Denarius gives you the same thing, there is absolutely no substitute for having a former student athlete sit in front of these kids and their families at your university. And I will say this, I don't know that there's a place in the history of college football that can say on one staff, they got 3 guys that were first-team All-Americans that played at that institution, and 3 guys that 2 of which will be in the Hall of Fame by this time next year, and the 3rd will certainly be a Hall of Famer at that institution. And I think that resonates with people like, why are they back here? Well, because this is what we've been telling you, man, this place is special, it's unique. And they can really speak to that in a way that nobody else can. And so, and then, Eric, we talked about him kind of being the bird dog on Peanut and going down to San Diego and getting that done. And we're excited to get into some new areas where he's got some connections and some experience. And so I think it's going to be a win-win for everybody.
Wanting to bolster up the secondary defensively, how do you feel like that came out?
Yeah, I think it was probably, that was a huge success for us in terms of who we were able to sign. And I think Kyle Reisinger, stepping in with Mark, leaving after December to go to Utah State University, that was, Kyle had to step up, and he hadn't really spent a lot of time on the road. He's a young coach, and it was kind of learn, I think he and I did the California trip twice together from San Diego all the way up to Sacramento. And, you can tell he's taking notes when we're doing home visits, and he did a really good job of working through that period of time, and then having Kane jump on at the end, that was hugely important in terms of the timing for us to finish that up. And, when you lose 5 guys that have played significant amount for you next year, it's hard because these kids are going, oh, well, I want to play now. I want to play now. And we're like, listen, you're going to have the best of both worlds. You're probably going to get some playing time, but you're also going to probably get this year because we've got some experience, really good players that you can learn from and grow from and develop. And now we've set our program up for long-term success in the back end, which is hard to do because when I got here, we were a revolving door in the secondary. It was just trying to grab guys here or there. And now you got 5 seniors in that room right now, and you bring in 4 young guys that are going to be able to learn and grow and compete against those guys. I think that just speaks to our ability to sustain some success on the defensive side of the ball.
Are you still going to look for a combo kicker punter?
Yeah, we kind of thought we had one, and a really good athlete. He chose to go play another position at another school, and so we're definitely in the market for. We've got a couple of walk-on guys that I think have agreed to be involved, and we may end up going that route where we just take up a couple more roster spots to try to make sure that we find whoever that next person is at punter or kicker, because obviously we can't go into it with just Tristan and Jared, but we have Tristan and Jared, which is a good thing. All right. Audience?
So you're going to get one more D-line guy, inside or outside?
I think our edges are pretty good. I think it's more of an interior guy. If you look at what we lost with Tucker, and Tyrone and Zach, all three more inside body types. And so that's probably going to be, well, it is going to be our number one priority as this late period comes around. I think we've got some guys, some names on the board that we feel pretty good about, but we never know where that difference maker might come from. And so there might be a bridge guy for us that, whether it's a one-year guy that is a graduate transfer, however it may work, where we get a bridge guy that can really help us go. Because right now I think what we're looking for is we're looking for guys that can slot in and that's the one piece that we're missing to go win a championship. We're not trying to plug a bunch of holes in the dike. We're going, we need that, and we're rolling. And I think that, maybe a speed receiver, a veteran guy would be good, but not a necessity, because we do have this is working out great here. Okay, and then that interior, but I do think the interior defensive line would be a big piece for us if we get a veteran guy that had, had the ability to come in and play right away. All right. Anybody else?
Where does Peanut come from, the nickname?
Jamad's nickname, Peanut. What's do you know the origin? That'll be something you can ask him, Greg. A year and a half from now when you get to talk to the freshmen. Saw a hand come up out there. Somebody. Yes, sir.
What's our linebacking program look like? Are we going to get a Bobby Daly or anything else? Impact player coming out?
We got Bobby Daly. We're good. No, I think, I think that's actually, that's one of the reasons why Bobby's here. I think that, really feel like he's going to have the ability to have an impact on that room and bring an edge and a personality to, I know he's going to take a lot of pride in that product that we put out there at that position. I think there's going to be some good battles. The Sam linebacker will be interesting, There's some pretty good players there, and then the inside position, a lot of it kind of hinges on how's Josh's back. That changes some things, moving some guys around. How does some of these new guys, Blake Flovin, who's played college football, how does he fit into the equation? So I think that's probably, if there's one position on our defense to really keep an eye on in terms of who the next impact guy is, talk to Bobby. He'll have it dialed. He's the happiest guy in this room. He's got an impact guy in there right now. So he's got 15 back there with him, so he better not screw that one up. And or Matt will just take him back, right, Matt? You good with that? All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody being here, and it's always exciting, even though it doesn't look like football weather outside. It's good to kind of talk a little bit of football right now, and it's an exciting time to be a Bobcat. And 2019, 12-game season, 6 home games. We've got some great opponents coming to Bobcat Stadium. It's going to be fun. And we know you guys will follow us on the road as well. So appreciate you being here today, and go Cats.